You're going to need a bunch of different ways of joining new yarn. Now, for seamed garments, you can easily just start a new ball at the side of a seam, but if you're in the middle of a row and you encounter a knot, it's really useful to have a few methods of joining yarn seamlessly so that you're able to go ahead and basically continue on with your work. So the first type of yarn I'm going to look at is one that is unfeltable or plant fiber, superwash, something like that. So this one is a cotton acrylic blend, and it's quite smooth, but it's obviously not going to really be very useful for felting. So probably the go-to method that I would have is what's called a feltable join. And with that, sorry, not a feltable join, Russian join. For that, you've got the end of the old yarn and the start of the new yarn, and you're going to lie them across each other like this, and you'll ultimately just be folding them back on each other. Then the bits that you fold in, you're going to weave this in down here, and you're going to weave this in down here into the middle of the other yarn. Now I'm using a tapestry needle, but you're probably better off if you've got one at hand, one with an eye that's big enough to be able to thread it, but with a sharper point on it, because you want to try and go down through the middle. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pierce the middle of this, and I'm going to try and zigzag down the center of the yarn, trying to kind of basically weave the tail of this yarn back into itself. And you want to do it for a good few inches, or enough that you're going to know that it's secure and you've got most of your tail woven in. So I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. Pull this through and straighten that up. So I've got most of it woven in with just a tiny little bit left in the end. Then I'll do the same on the other side. This is a really, really good join if you've got a very slippy yarn, like it might be like a silk or a mercerized cotton or bamboo or something like that, where they're just going to slip right over each other if you don't do something very secure with them. If you've got a very fat yarn as well, what you can do before you start doing this is you can cut half of the plies out in the yarn. There we go. I'll pop this down, pull this out, stretch it out. So there you go. It's not going to be completely invisible, but it'll be extremely secure. Now, when I was folding it over, if you had a very thick yarn, or even this one really, what you can actually do is untwist the yarns and then just get a scissors and cut half those plies out. So then the section here that you're trying to weave in is half the thickness. So if you weave that in on itself, it's going to be much thinner and much less obtrusive. So you can see when I did a full layer, it still works really, really strong, but it's going to be quite thick. So by cutting half out for a kind of a thicker yarn like this, it's going to be a lot more subtle. Then you can, when you're finished, you can just make sure these are on the inside, and you can trim them back to tidy them up a bit. So that is the